Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today being Friday, the 6th of May, 2016. I want to thank you for allowing us into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work. For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orit Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There's always someone there waiting to take your calls. You can call us on our toll-free number. That toll-free number provided courtesy of Lime is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. And of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, you can email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at candw.ky. Correction there, force of habit. That should be provided, or toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo, no longer Lime. Thanks for the reminder. No longer Lime, and I will repeat that number, 1-800-534-8255. Of course, For the Record would not be possible without the support of our loyal sponsors. For the Record is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance Insurance Company Limited. Tomorrow is secure. You can call them at 949-9744 or visit them at Alista Towers. Seaboard Marine with 35 shipping routes including from Houston, New York, Miami, and Jamaica. Visit seaboardmarine.com for shipping schedules and more. Seaboard Marine, shipping shore to shore. Fidelity Bank, for all of your banking and pension needs, call or visit a Fidelity branch today. And the Cayman Reporter. Caymanian owned, 100% independent, and 100% free. So pick up your free copy today or log on to www.caymanreporter.com. Our legislators worked real hard and real late last night. The proceedings at the Legislative Assembly did not conclude until 12 minutes to 12 last night. So they worked real late, dealing with, I think the last issues were private members' motions. Normally we would have the leader of the opposition in with us today, and he was scheduled for that, but he had to advise me real late last night that he was unable to be here because they finished late, which I was aware, I knew, because I was listening. And of course, they have to be back in there early again this morning. So as usual, I was able to send a text, I think it was after midnight, to my good friend, Mr. Steve McFeel. And the text said, basically, when you read this in the morning, hopefully it's early enough for you to respond or to be able to join me in the studio or to talk today. I sent that text, got into the bed, and then I heard bing, bing, bing. I said, that's Mr. McField responding. Sure enough, it was, and he was responding. So I said, you're like me. You know, you stay up late and you get up early. So it is my pleasure to have in the studio with me again this morning my good friend, Mr. Steve McFeel, who on extremely short notice was able to be here this morning. Mr. McFeel, good morning. Welcome back to For the Record.
Good morning to you, and good morning to your listening public. And it's good to be here, and I will always come when you ask me to come. It doesn't matter if it's short notice or long notice. I will always be there because it's great to be in the show with you, OC. I think you are the best, and I think you bring out the best in people who appears on your show.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we know that they're going to be back in the Legislative Assembly. This morning, it seems as if this whole issue of register of beneficial owners is really starting to press the UK as well as the OECD, and all of them are pushing forward with this, putting a lot of pressure on not only the Cayman Islands, but I would imagine other overseas territories as well. I've scoured some of the other overseas territories, their newspapers today, to see whether or not there was any indication in terms of others going. I believe that there had been an earlier indication that Bermuda would be attending as well. I'm not sure if you're aware of other overseas territories, but this says a lot about us and whether or not we're prepared for the next step, if that step becomes necessary.
Well, see, and we are not prepared, and that's the problem. There's no plan B. We only have plan A. And when plan A fails, we're going to fall back to where we came from. And the problem is that we knew all along that this was coming. And in fact, I had my experience with this. I keep saying, and so to a lot of people and to the public, and people don't understand, this was happening from the 1990s. As I said before, when I was president of the Caymanian Bar Association, I went to a seminar in Barbados as put on by the Caribbean Basin Initiative, and they had a draft company law, which included all the disclosures of everything that a company does, all their contract, their interest, and everything. And they wanted all of the Caribbean territories to incorporate that law into that company law into their legislature and their legislation. And I asked the proposer of the company law if he had sent this to Cayman Islands, and he said he had sent it to Cayman Islands. As I said then, the late Richard Brown was the Attorney General then, mm-hmm. But he never showed it to anyone in Cayman Islands. And if we had looked at things from the beginning, he wouldn't be in this mess today. The disclosure of beneficial interest is going to happen, and in fact, some of it is happening right now. And while we are running up and down and wagging the tail to the United Kingdom and to the USA and to the European Union, and while they are saying that we have to tell them everything who owns companies and who has beneficial interests in companies and so forth, Jamaica is preparing to go into the offshore financial services business. They're now revitalizing downtown Kingston, and they're putting in the requisite legislation to compete in the offshore business. And it seems to me that when we go down, because it seems like that's what the United Kingdom and the European Union is going to do to us, they're going to push us right down where we are going to lose our offshore industry. Jamaica is going to be getting it, and they are an independent country. They don't have to answer to anyone. And it's going to be full circle again. Jamaica's going to have the money, and we might have to go there to find work.
Interesting. Now, we see that this pressure is more so on the overseas territories and those with financial centers. We don't see it so much on like you pointed out, on independent countries, whether or not they're going to be able to withstand the pressures that come later on as well. But you would expect that what is applicable to the small jurisdiction should be applicable to others as well, or what is applicable to those that fall under the UK's administration should be applicable to independent countries as well. But we don't necessarily find that is the case.
Well, we can't use that as an excuse or OC. They are independent. They can do what they want to do. We are a colony, and as a colony, we are like children. We are like indentured servants. And someone just reminded me that in the 1980s, when Roy and Gilbert went up to the United Kingdom, they told them that they should develop their service industry. Mm-hmm. They told them that. They made it quite clear that this this offshore industry that you have is not going to last very long, and we have done nothing about it. And and the thing about it, we don't incorporate Caymanians and bring them into the forefront so that you can have their ideas of what to do in case something happens. So it seems to me that the chickens have come home to roost now. And it was only 2 weeks ago, I think, that Minister Panton went up to the European Union, and I think they grilled him, I understood, very severely. And now he's back in the UK. And it's obvious that they are not going to let us get away with not disclosing the beneficial interests of people who own business in the Cayman Islands, especially the companies and things like that. It seems to me that what's going to happen, it's going to be just like the lands and service department. You can go down there and you can see who owns your land, how much you paid for it, where the root of title came from, what bank has the mortgage, and everything. That is how the company's law is going to be, where they can come in and they don't have to ask you. They can just go log into it and get the information that they need.
And of course, the other threat that they're holding over our heads is the whole issue of blacklisting. Now that has blacklisting has some reputational implications, but also blacklisting could adversely affect our financial industry to the extent of banking facilities and everything as well. All of that is quite possible, isn't it?
That is quite possible. It could put us into a place where we don't have correspondent banking, and that would put us into a real financial bind. But you can look at blacklisting on the other hand. You can say, well, the people who want to deal with us will say, well, listen, you're blacklisted because you didn't roll over and play dead. Mm-hmm. You didn't roll over and let them trample all over you. It's like Mr. Jim Borden told one of the governors, you didn't roll over, you didn't lie down and let him put his foot on your neck. And so blacklisting can have other effects as well. But it's not going to be easy for us in the next year or so. And any politicians who believe that they can talk their way out of this and that they can put it off for another day is in la la land and doesn't understand the whole colonial system and how it works.
Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Art Connor, and my guest in the studio with me this morning is Mr. Steve McFeel, prominent attorney. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Art Connor. I'm discussing with our guest, Mr. Steve McFeel, the trip that the Honourable Premier and his delegation will be making to the UK, not only to attend the UK's anti-corruption conference, but also to have discussions with UK officials in relation to the whole issue of beneficial ownership and the register that is to be established. We see here that the Premier in the Legislative Assembly revealed that the UK was already asking Cayman for a commitment to any new initiative for information exchange. However, he said the jurisdiction would not be the guinea pig going out in front on any new initiative until it was adopted across the international community. He also pointed out that given the constantly evolving situation surrounding beneficial ownership, Cayman had to be at the table. It was important for us to be at the table. Therefore, he would be going to the conference along with Financial Services Minister Wayne Panton and Ministry Councillor Roy McTaggart, but they would be engaging in preliminary meetings before the global conference set for next Thursday. He's quoted as saying, "We have to engage." He also said that he had not expected things to move so quickly again, but pressure was building and things were not going to stand still. He said that the situation had now moved well beyond discussions about a central public registry or similar systems. He warned that the Cayman Islands could not act in isolation given the significant role in the world's financial system. given its significant role in the world's financial system, and could not avoid adopting whatever becomes the global standard regarding information exchange. Now let's look at that last paragraph there in terms of what the Premier has said, that the Cayman Islands could not act in isolation given its significant role in the world's financial system, and that we cannot avoid adopting whatever becomes a global standard regarding information exchange. This seems to imply that if there is an international standard that has been set, and if everyone is adhering to that standard and to those principles, then we'll all be playing on a level playing field. But if that is not the case, if, for instance, there are independent countries who feel that they can do otherwise and can withstand any of the repercussions coming from the UK, the US, or the European Union.
That's very naive to believe that. I have examples of international standards of independence and security, and one country walks into the other and invades it and destroys it, and nothing happens. The other country said, well, they have a right to defend themselves, or so and so forth. They can be international standards for them, but not for you, because you don't have any international rights. So how could it be international standards when you don't have any international rights? So it's a standard that they set for you, but they say, do as we do, as we say, but don't do as we do. That is how the world works. He who has the guns and who has the power controls. And so we don't have any guns and any power. We can't go, and we don't have a gun boat that we can go to Britain and say, we're not doing this and we can defend ourselves. And remember now, we are their colony.
Exactly, yeah.
We are their colony.
Us, yes.
They own our country, and we have done nothing to move forward or to move on and to get some more autonomy for ourselves, so that we can say, oh, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. It's international standard, but it doesn't suit us. And so here we are now, making up all these excuses that we have already done all along, when we knew from the beginning that this was coming down the pipeline, that we had to disclose the interests of people who have offshore business in the Cayman Islands, and that was a law that they were going to put in, and that was something that we had to do, and that we can't get out of it. And we have not started to a plan B or a plan C to see how we are going to deal with it when it came down to this.
Now, we haven't heard much, and I guess maybe this has come so quickly, but we haven't heard much from the financial industry here, Cayman Finance and others, as to, we know what they have said in the past in relation to it, and they do agree with the position that the Premier has taken, that we certainly will not be the guinea pig, and we will go along with whatever the rest of the world agrees to, but we're not going to be the lone wolf out there who's going to be the guinea pig for this whole setup. It has to be across the board, and I think that stance that is being taken is one that can be sustained to a certain extent. But then when everyone else starts to get in line, then it is quite obvious that we're going to have to get in line with them.
Yeah, well, OC, bearing in mind the amount of profit that they're making from the financial offshore services, it's nothing compared to what the government is getting. The government is getting actually peanuts, and the government is one that is carrying the financial, the political, and the economic burden of it. I don't see them putting in any money given the government, or I don't see them being part of the government delegation and say we are coming to support you. I don't see them doing that. I don't see them say we're going to raise 10 or 15 million, $20 million to give the government so that the government can make a stand if something happens. They're very selfish. And soon as this comes in where it affects them worse, they'll find another place. For instance, like Jamaica, who don't have to disclose to anybody because they're an independent country. They'll go there and set up the business if the price is right.
And of course, let's look at the possibility. Sorry. If the UK really, and it appears as if this is really what they want to do, they want to ensure that this comes into effect. By order in council, they can do it to every single overseas territory, including Bermuda. They can enact legislation by order in council. That is a real possibility here.
Sure,
In
they
this
could do that
case.
tomorrow if they wanted to, or the next day. That's their power over us. And we can go and we can say, as much as we like, that, oh, they're not going to do that. That is their last resort and things like that. They wouldn't do that. But remember now, it's their interest to have this beneficial disclosure. And so they will do anything that they can to get us to disclose what they want us to disclose. So they can use that nuclear power anytime that they want. It is the things that keeps us really backwards and keeps us down. It's the thing that dumbs us down. It's this nuclear power that they have over our heads. Well, if you don't do this,
Their option, yeah.
yeah, and we see they have done it several times in Cayman. They have used that nuclear option to push us back when we're trying to move forward on in certain fields and in certain avenues in the political life of the country.
I was looking at yesterday at the Gibraltar Constitution, and like I pointed out earlier, they can institute orders in council with in terms of Gibraltar as well. But when that bill, whatever bill that the governor or law that the governor is going to bring into effect in relation to it, it has to be published and published for a given period of time. When we go to the break, I will look up the details in relation to that, and I'm not sure whether or not our system reflects the same as in Gibraltar, where orders in council. I mean, not that the publishing makes any difference at the end of the day. It is the end result, and the end result is going to be that we're going to have a piece of legislation that is imposed upon us. We saw it once when it came to the death penalty
That's
here in
right.
the Cayman Islands.
That's right.
And then we have seen the threat over our heads since that. Now, I believe that in this case, if it does happen, that the UK will not hesitate whenever necessary, to do it, because they will certainly be in that comfort zone that they want to be in, that if they don't do what we tell them, we will bring an order in council.
And remember, they've been pressed from both sides. They're pressed from their partners, and they're pressed from their partners. They're pressed from the United States. They're pressed from the other European Union countries, and they're pressed internally from their own British people. They're pressed from the opposition to do this.
And not to forget the Mossack Fonseca, the Panama
Exactly.
case as well. That has brought it to the forefront. And
Exactly.
with David Cameron's family's name being brought up in it, he now has to
Do
appear
something
as if he's doing something about
it.
it. Yeah, rather than to
Yes.
protect what he has done. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Orrit Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, Mr. Steve Macfield. Please stay tuned. We're going to the news. When we come back, we will have more discussions with our guest, Mr. Macfield. For the Record, I'm your host, Orrit Connor, and my guest in the studio with me this morning is prominent attorney, Mr. Steve Macfield. We're discussing the issue of register of beneficial owners or ownership. We're talking about the Cayman Islands delegation going to the UK, led by the Honourable Premier, to attend the anti-corruption conference, but also to have discussions with UK in relation to the issue of beneficial ownership, because the whole process has now been accelerated, and things are coming to the fore that were not expected to come at this point in time. During the discussion, I talked about the governor's special legislative powers and comparing the Cayman Islands to Gibraltar Constitution. Now, the Gibraltar Constitution says that if the governor considers that the enactment of legislation is necessary or desirable with respect to or in the interest of any matter for which he is responsible under a particular section, but after consultation with the chief minister, it appears to him that the government is unwilling to support the introduction into Parliament of a bill for the purpose, or that the Parliament is unlikely to pass a bill introduced therein for the purpose, the governor may, with the prior approval of a Secretary of State, cause a bill for the purpose to be published in the Gazette, and may, notwithstanding that the bill has not been passed by Parliament, assent thereto on behalf of Her Majesty. And there is a proviso there, provided that the bill shall be published in the Gazette for at least 21 days prior to assent, unless the governor certifies by writing under his hand that the matter is too urgent to permit such a delay in giving of assent, and so informs the Secretary of State. So that is the Gibraltar Constitution in relation to that. Our Constitution, Section 81, in relation to the governor's reserved powers, reads, if the governor considers that the enactment of legislation is necessary or desirable with respect to or in the interest of any matter for which he or she is responsible under Section 55, in our case, Section 47 in the Gibraltar case. But after consultation with the Premier, it appears that the governor that the Cabinet is unwilling to support the introduction into the Legislative Assembly of a bill for this purpose, or that the Assembly is unlikely to pass a bill introduced for the purpose, the governor may, with the prior approval of the Secretary of State, cause a bill for the purpose to be published in a government notice, and may, notwithstanding the bill has not been passed by the Assembly, assent to it on behalf of Her Majesty. But the bill shall be published for at least 21 days prior to assent, unless the governor certifies by writing under his or her hand that the matter is too urgent to permit such a delay and in the giving of assent, and so informs the Secretary of State. It is almost exact word for word.
Verbatim, yes.
Yeah, well, we know that when it comes to constitutions, there's a lot of cut and paste to it.
Yes.
Whereas at the same time, we do get some local input into what we want into our constitution. There are things in there that the UK basically insists, and all of the overseas territories, you will find similar legislation there as well. And I'm only discussing this simply because if at some point in time legislators decide we are not going to pass this legislation, of course the government, as the numbers stand now, any legislation that has to come before the LA, they have the numbers to pass it, unless someone decides to break rank from the government side. But in the event that that possibility arises, it is important for all of Cayman to know exactly how the process works, how it would work if the legislature were to refuse to pass legislation when it comes to further relenting on the issue of beneficial ownership.
Yeah, and let me play the devil's advocate and look the other way. Suppose the legislature passed a law that says opposite to beneficial ownership. Suppose opposite to beneficial ownership. Suppose the legislature passed a law.
Then you would probably see a disallowance of that law, the governor refusing to assent to it after consultation with the Secretary of State.
Yes, that is what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give another scenario. Section 15.5 of the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution says that Caymanians have the right to determine what jobs in the private sector should be for Caymanians. You agree with that?
Yes. We've repeated that here
Yes.
on several occasions. We've repeated that.
Okay. Now, you remember the Constitution says that the governor has certain portfolios in which she's responsible for, but she carries those out under the
Section 16.5, yes.
Section 16.5.
Yes.
Okay. Section 16.5 enacts that the Caymanian people have a right to say, Section 16.5 says the Caymanian people have a right to say what jobs in the public sector should be for Caymanians only. Let us suppose now that the Legislative Assembly goes out and passes a law that says the Commissioner of Police job could only be for Caymanians. The prison officer job should only be for Caymanians. The fire service job, chief fire service job should only be for Caymanians, and so forth. Even though the governor is the one who appoints the people to the job, the Constitution doesn't say that the governor has the right to say who should get the job. She has the right to appoint people to the job. But let's say that the Caymanian people lay down legislation of who in far as nationality should be the person appointed to the job, that the government should appoint to the job. Do you think the governor could refuse to make the appointment?
I would say that the Constitution trumps any other law that may be enacted.
Exactly.
Yes.
You remember the Attorney General's case in UK many years ago, where Lord Denning said, not even the Queen is above the law. So if the legislature goes out and pass a law that says the Commissioner of Police has to be a Caymanian, the governor has to appoint a Caymanian unless the governor disallows the law. And so I would say to the legislators, they should go and push the envelope and see how far that they can implement the Constitution and implement what the Constitution says that they have a right to. And let's test it and see what happens.
Yeah, and have it settled once and for all.
Let's have it settled once and for all. That's what I would suggest.
Interesting. In the UK Guardian newspaper, and this was dated, Tuesday the 12th of April 2016, last month. And the article is entitled Overseas Territories Spared from UK Law and Company Registers. And it reads, Britain will not make fresh demands of its overseas territories to end tax secrecy at an upcoming anti-corruption summit, the Minister for the Territories has confirmed. James Dudderidge praised the leadership of the territories on tax transparency on Tuesday, saying they had taken a big step by agreeing to set up central registers of beneficial ownership that would be open to law enforcement agencies. Speaking in the Commons, Dudderidge, a junior Foreign Office minister, said it was only fair to congratulate the territories on their superb progress, especially as some states in the United States continue to allow companies to be formed without the need for a register of beneficial ownership. Sorry. There are 17 overseas territories and crown dependencies under British sovereignty, including Bermuda, Gibraltar, Jersey, the Falkland Islands. They run their own domestic affairs and are not part of the UK itself. More than half of the companies implicated in the leaked Panama Papers are registered in the UK overseas territories and crown dependencies. The Shadow Foreign Secretary, Hilary Benn, had asked the Foreign Office to explain why it was not pressing for a central register of ownership that was open to the public in line with the one being introduced by law in the United Kingdom. if openness, and he's quoted here as saying, is if openness is good enough for the UK, why should we accept a different position for our overseas territories? Ben asked during Foreign Office questions at the Commons. He pointed out that the Prime Minister had said a public registry was necessary to help combat crime. The question is, what has transpired since April in less than a month? What has accelerated this whole issue? What has done it? What has caused it?
Well, one of the things that that will transpire is the whole vote, the referendum. One of the things that pushing is the whole referendum of whether Britain should leave the EU.
Right, Brexit. Yes.
Brexit. And Cameron wants to be sure that he's on the right side and that he get people to support him. And one of the things that people are saying in Britain, that these overseas countries and territories who have these beneficial interests that they're not disclosing is what Cameron has fallen down on. And so what is for? Political expediency. It hasn't got anything to do with what we're not doing or what we should do. It's had to do with what's expedient to them.
So we're being used as a sacrificial lamb again.
Exactly. Well, as we always have been used as sacrificial lambs.
We start with the what was it, the tax in
yes.
The tax information exchange.
Yes.
We saw it with that. For instance. Okay. Let's switch gears, Mr. McPhail, and talk locally. You wanted to talk about the prisons. You are engaged in the courts. You handle all sorts of cases, criminal cases, civil cases, whatever. What are you seeing happening? You've mentioned the fact of Northwood Prison. We see the overcrowding. We see the assistance that they need if they're going to be involved in a rehabilitative process. What are your concerns?
I'm very concerned because we now know that Northwood is not providing any rehabilitation for the prisoners that go in there. We now know that is not that is nil, and I am thankful for the prison director to come out and be truthful and to be level with us and to say what the problem is. I didn't actually know that we have a place in Northwood where people are only allowed out of their cell for 1 hour a day. For 23 hours of day, they're closed down, locked down in their cells and not allowed out. And that there's no rehabilitation programs. And that he's now asking the private sector to help with the rehabilitation program because the government is not putting any money into it. I think that is very disturbing. Bearing in mind that the private sector really doesn't help the prisoners much when they come out because they have convictions and they're not easy for them to get jobs. I think that is a pressing issue that the government needs to address it, and the government needs to find the money to rehabilitate the prisoners, because it's only be a revolving economic door that is taking money out of the education system, that taking money out of housing, that is taking money that could be beneficial to the other people in society who are not committing crimes. Because if you do not rehabilitate a person and he goes back again and again and again, it means you have to have more security guards. It means you have to have larger prison cells, and it means that you're making the same mistake over and over again. It's very alarming to me, and I think that's one of the priorities that the government should be doing. Education, pre-education, and rehabilitation of people who have committed offenses and are now in the prison system. I think once you get them there, you should try to rehabilitate them so when they come out that they are useful citizens to the community. And as Truman Bodden said one time, and I like to quote him on this, and I agree with him. It says, if you spend $10 million and 2 people got rehabilitated, the $10 million was worth spending the money. And I think that's what we should do. because it's only harming our society, and we're turning our backs against the real problems and not tackling the real problems that really concerns us on a daily basis.
Okay, I'm going to switch. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Art Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, none other than Mr. Steve Macfield, prominent attorney. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. I want to remind you that the phone lines are open. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 or 949-6990. You can also email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at candw.ky. And despite the fact that we're discussing the issue of beneficial ownership, and we have also mentioned some of the challenges that the Her Majesty's prison at Northwood is experiencing, you may also want to call up on issues that you may have on your mind or issues that may be affecting you as well. So we welcome your calls there also. I'm going back to the issue of beneficial ownership. Again, the UK Treasury on the 15th of April of this year issued a press release. And that press release said that the Chancellor George Osborne on Thursday, the 14th of April, and this is around about the same time that the statement was made. Dudridge made the statement in the UK House of Commons, unveiled a groundbreaking international deal to automatically share information on the ultimate owners of companies with key EU allies, making it more difficult for firms to dodge tax or funnel corrupt funds. Britain has initiated an agreement with Germany, France, Italy, and Spain that will see tax and law enforcement agencies from the 5 countries exchange data on company beneficial ownership registry and new registers of trust, allowing for more effective investigations of financial wrongdoings. The Chancellor has also written to the G20 counterparts, along with finance ministers from Germany, France, Italy, and Spain, urging progress towards a full global exchange of beneficial ownership information in order to remove, quote, the veil of secrecy under which criminals operate, unquote. A global move towards interlinking countries' registries will provide for the first time international real-time, and I'm going to repeat this, a global move towards interlinking country registers will provide for the first time international real-time access to tax and law enforcement agencies on company ownership. So we're not talking about automatic exchange of information. They want real-time information. That means that when I show up there to present this information, they're going to get it right there, probably including my photograph, my picture as well.
That means when you go to the registry to form a company or to set up a trust or a partnership, and you send your papers in, they will also have your photograph, because they will have their cameras set up in real time. What's this called? Interlocking camera system. And as you register your company and you pay and take that in, they will know, and they will have copies of all the documents that you filed. And it's very interesting what you said when you begin to make the statement. It says automatically share information. It doesn't mean that they have to send a request to get the information anymore. It means the information will be shared automatically. It's the same as the technology that you have now, that you can go to Las Vegas and you can be in the gambling casino or in a hotel and you can see what's happening in your house down in Grand Cayman, whether someone is on your beach or someone is in your backyard or someone has entered your front gate. It's the same technology that they're going to use. And that does not surprise me, because a couple of weeks ago, we had the spy agency from United Kingdom down here, and Interpol was down here. And it seems to me that it's already happening. It's already happening. And they're not going to have to pass any order in Congress to let it happen. It's already happening. And all the computer system where this information is kept is going to be interlocked with United Kingdom and European counterparts, computers, so that they can have it real time. It's the same. Real time means if I go to court and I'm making a statement in court, it's been taken on verbatim, and I can ask the person to repeat it for me what I just said 2 minutes ago, and that I can get that repeated. That's what is meant in real time, and that it seems to me that is the new revelation that's happening now, and that's what Cayman is trying to fight against, which they're losing the battle.
Again, I'd like to refer back to what was said earlier when you talked about the fact that we had been years ago, decades ago, warned by the UK and encouraged to try to diversify our economy and move away from basically just finance and tourism. And you pointed out that this was the writing on the wall. They were giving us advance warning that these things would be eventually coming along.
Yes.
They obviously didn't like the idea that a small jurisdiction like the Cayman Islands is able to control so much of the global finance, so much of the global money, and they obviously want to pull that back into the UK.
Yes.
Now, there's another article that I read, and this one has to do with the UK's position on sharing beneficial ownership data is totally hypocritical. And this article also points out that it says here, first, let me welcome the idea behind the movement. The main advantage of which is in bringing Germany on board. So the whole issue is about bringing Germany on board.
Yes.
Fares based on its history in the 1930s have long held Germany back from embracing beneficial ownership data that they have accepted the need to now do so. Now is welcome. So this writer believes that part of this is to bring Germany back on board,
yes,
because they have resisted it in the past.
Yes.
I'm told that we have a caller. Let's go to the phone lines. So, caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen. Especially good morning to Mr. McPhee, number one from the Brack.
Good morning, number one from the Brack. How are you?
I'm trying to live while I die, sir.
Thank you. Yes.
Haven't heard from you in a while, number one. How are you?
Well, I'd rather stay off the radio because people don't like when I get on there, but I'm just sick and fed up. I hear this thing about England trying to mess up the Cayman Islands. Everywhere they turn, they're trying to do it. They're trying to mess up the banking system, everything. I even see them on TV with a member of opposition talking about, no, something got to take out a fund down the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, we wonder whether or not they're a friend or foe, and whether or not they're really a parent or acting more like a foster parent or something else.
They're acting like a fossil.
Well, number one, let me remind you of where we came from, okay?
Yes, sir.
At first, we were British subjects. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
We were the subjects. We were
yes, sir.
subjects, yes? And then we were British, We were
Citizen of the
citizen
UK,
of the UK colonies.
Yes.
Yes.
and colonies.
Yes, sir.
And now we're British overseas territory citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're not English.
But we can soon be British old people.
But we're not English, remember now. We're not English now, you know. We're not English.
Yeah, and bear in
Yes,
mind
yes.
with all of those changes in designations,
Yes.
that nothing changed.
Nothing
otherwise.
changed. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. Nothing changed.
Right. I want to know when I used to come down to Cayman when I was going to school in Jamaica and visit my grandparents. You never see England sending no boat down there or Cayman back with no food and nothing to help the people.
No.
All they want now is just to ruin the Cayman Islands, to take the money back up there. And they just craving, instead of spending 148 million pounds up there to go fix a place, castle for, what's your name, the Queen? That's sickening. Tell them to stay up there and drink their cup of tea. We don't want them here.
Yes.
I'm sorry if this offended any of you, but I'm talking straight. It could be the Queen, it could be the Governor, the Prime Minister. Listen, I don't care.
Not offending any of us.
You haven't offended me. You haven't offended me. Number one.
Sir?
You haven't offended me.
Well, I'm just saying, but that's just my way of talking, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to be on the right side. Make sure. Because as far as I care, all they are doing is trying to ruin the Cayman Islands to get all the banks out. And I don't care who like what I say. I said it, not all of you, okay? So England, keep on the pound over there and on the tea and drink it and keep pounding the boxes. And have a good day to all of you, sir.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Number one, you have a great day too, folks.
Okay.
Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning is none other than Mr. A. Steve MacPhail, prominent Caymanian attorney. Please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest with me, Mr. Steve MacPhail. I want to again focus on this article. The UK's position on sharing beneficial ownership data is totally hypocritical. The writer talks about the fact that that this is really not as much a UK-driven initiative as we believe. That the fact that it is more a German and a French initiative, and this would tie in with what you were saying, Mr. MacPhail, you know, in relation to the whole question of the Brexit.
Yes.
And the threat that if the referendum were to succeed in the UK, and that's coming up in June.
Yes.
Remember
that's
now,
in
that's
June.
coming up in June of this year.
That's right.
And that is one of the reasons why this whole thing has been accelerated.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
they're trying to strike a deal with the UK in relation to, if you do not leave
Yes.
the European Union, this is what we will be able to give to you. But
That's
we
right,
we need this to happen. So it is no accident that all of this is taking place before the June referendum.
And remember, the referendum is a month away.
Yeah.
Just about a month away now.
Yeah. We have one caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Lucy.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning to you, sir.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Okay, I'm fine, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. I think you just hit the nail on the head. When you say Germany,
Yep.
they're all ganged up together to get us.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, a lot of people, all the blame goes on Britain, but we've got to remember they're not Great Britain anymore. She works for other people as well, and there's other bosses that says you got to do this or that or the other, and that's what we're looking at here in Cayman. They got to take it because they are our immediate bosses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not them alone. And they're going to get that money one way or the other unless we decide we're not going to open up anything to you, and I don't know what will happen then. But you remember, see the Chicago heist?
Yes, yes.
That money is still here with no owner.
Yes.
So this is what they're after. They don't mind about who owns it if they can get to see it. You know, piracy hasn't ended. We take what we can get.
Yep.
So the more we're up, we're against a hard place. We either learn to swim or drown.
Drown. Yep.
Yeah.
And we certainly know how to swim in other respects, and I think
We need to learn.
but we need to make some really hard decisions.
Right.
We need to learn how to play hard ball, not softball,
That's right.
anymore as well. And we need to be able to, when we go and talk to and have discussions with the UK and other countries, to be able to rebuff some of the things that they're saying. And that is why I'm focusing so much on this article here, because this article points out so much that that can be used in our discussions as well.
Yes, yes. You know, there's two kinds of love. Soft love and hard love. Soft love tends to spoil, but hard love makes a man or a woman realize who they are. And with that, OC, have a good day. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Have other callers on hold. Let's go back to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Mr. Connor and Mr. Maxfield. Good morning, gentlemen. What happening?
Good morning.
Mr.
What happening with you? Haven't heard from you in a while.
It's been a while. I have been silent for a while. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I'm gonna leave the candid political discussions and the discussions as it relates to politics and the economy and our relations with the United Kingdom. I'm gonna leave that good discussions with you and your highly esteemed guest. I'm sure you can take very good care of that. The reason I'm calling this morning, you're welcome. The reason I'm calling, though, is to say I'm going to miss the premiere this weekend because, as I understand it, he's preparing to head to London, eh?
That's correct.
That's right, yes.
And, you know, it's Carnival weekend. It's Batabanu, is it not?
Yes, on Saturday.
And absolutely. And I want you to know that our premier is an avid masquerader. You know, when it's time to jump in Carnival, he puts his costume on and he's on the street. And that's the spirit of Batabanu. So reminding you and your listeners that tonight is the Friday night set. It's downtown Georgetown, Harbor Drive. And, of course, tomorrow is the street parade and the street party tomorrow night. There'll be 3 stages. So the place to be is downtown Georgetown tonight and tomorrow night for Batabanu Cayman Carnival. Thanks for letting me give it a plug and let us come together as a nation. It's time to come together, unite, and experience a bit of catharsis as we celebrate Batabanu 2016. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Quincy.
Thank you very much, Quincy. Going back to the article, and I just want to give credit for this. This is written by the Tax Research UK. And there's a gentleman by the name of Richard Murphy on tax and economics who has written this article. So he talks about the fact that it's a German-French initiative. Then he points out that the UK seems a reluctant partner, apparently doing all it can to mitigate disclosure on trusts, where new rules are far from adequate and will mean that effective information exchange from the UK is very unlikely. So they when it comes to the issue of trust,
Yes.
they're not really that aggressive in that area. He also points out that this comes at the end of a week when media, I have seen, suggest that Jersey, Guernsey, and Cayman at least are cock-a-hoop at having rebuffed calls from David Cameron that they must have readily accessible registers of beneficial ownership, even for the use of UK law enforcement agencies. So how the UK thinks that now is the time to claim world leadership in this issue is very hard to credit. As I have argued, this government has proved this week to be a good friend if the forces, good friend of the forces of corruption. Then he points out to suggest that the UK's new register of beneficial ownership will provide any new or useful information to exchange on beneficial ownership is ludicrous. This is where the problem starts. The new UK register is in fact a bit likely, is a bit like an honest boxed arrangement for those committing tax crimes. There will, of course, be a requirement that companies disclose details on beneficial ownership, but there will be no way of checking if the disclosure that they make is accurate, and no extra resources for pursuing those who might not be compliant seems likely to be provided to Companies House in the UK. Worse, we know that around 400,000 companies do not file annual tax returns each year, or annual returns each year as required. And they know that Companies House makes no effort to recover this data. They do instead simply dissolve the companies in question or strike them off in their jargon. This is the ultimate reward for the fraudsters. Their crime is covered up for them after they have been trading for some time without any demand being made or of accounts or ownership data, let alone tax due. So what he's pointing out here is that what the UK has in place is totally ineffective at this point in time. So, and the main point is that they're really catering to France and Germany. Now, when you look at Germany, we know that it has an aging population.
That's right.
We know that it when it came to benefits for retirees, extremely generous. And now that it is time to pay for all of that, they need to find the money to pay for it. Yeah.
They need to find the money to pay, and the money, they say, is in the tax havens or the offshore financial centers. That's where they say the money is, and they want to get it back, and they are going to do everything in their power to get it back. And as I was saying before, we have to weigh what the interest for us, and we have to have a plan B, because if they strip that away from us, where the revenue that we are going to get from that, we have no alternative way of putting that revenue back into the treasury, because we all depend on that revenue. Like I said, the benefits of it is mostly going offshore back, but the revenue that the government collects is what they take care of their people with, and that's going to be a really problem in Cayman Islands if we are not be able to collect that revenue. And the problem with what the British told us long time ago, that we should go in the service industry. That means the tourism and hotel and stuff industry. We don't own any of them either. We don't own it. I don't think most Caymanians own any restaurant. The majority of the Caymanians don't. The restaurants on the 7 Mile Beach are not Caymanian owned, and I don't think that the hotels are Caymanian owned, except for, I guess, for the ones that are billing now. But I think when you're talking about Caymanian owned, you're not talking about Mr. John Dart. You're talking about the local people who are going to benefit from it. Because at one time, in the old days, the Pageant Beach, the La Fontaine, and Coral Caymanian, and all those hotels were owned by Caymanian families and Caymanians who are working there. And if we have to go back to that now, we're going to have to follow public-private partnerships with someone to be able to build those commercial institutions, so that we can find work for our people, and that we can sustain our standard of life. Otherwise, we're going to have a real chaos in the Cayman Islands. like people have never seen before.
Okay, Mr. Markfield, what do we say for those persons who say that when you adopt rules, when you adopt legislation to ensure that you prevent corrupt money, dirty money, drug money from entering into the financial system, and those who say, well, the clean money will still come in if you block out, if you try to eliminate the corrupt, the tainted money. But at the same time, there are those companies, businesses, even families, trusts, and whatever, who seek not to avoid taxes, not to evade taxes, but avoiding them in the legal sense, that they look for the loopholes that are there, what is permitted for you, what you're allowed to do, and they go around that. There are still companies, there are still entities that want to have the ability to do that, but yet it seems as if now the focus is not only on tax evasion, but also on tax avoidance as well. And there's a clear distinction between the two.
Yes.
But they have now focused on both of them.
Yes, but you see the distinction that you made about the people who have legitimate business, and they're not evading taxes. They're avoiding taxes because they have used the loopholes in their laws. The most important thing to them is their privacy.
Yes.
They do not want other people to invade their privacy. They want to keep their family matters and their business matters private to themselves.
Because they can be targeted as well.
They can be targeted as well. And that is one of the most important things in this kind of business that we provide, is privacy to people. And people do not want their business to be public all over the world, where everybody can access it and have access to it real time, where it can be shared by law by say law enforcement agencies when they have not committed any crimes and so forth. That is where we are going to lose if this happens to us right now.
And sometimes we talk about law enforcement agencies, and we've seen many of them who find themselves on the wrong side of the law as well,
Yes.
who based on their practices and stuff like
Yes.
that, they end up breaking the same laws that
Yes.
they are empowered to enforce.
Yes. So privacy is the main driver why some people go offshore to do their business. They want to keep it private to themselves and to their families and to their companies that they own. They don't want everybody else to know.
Now we saw in the 70s where Cayman, the ingenuity here, where we created these structures based on everything that is coming down the pipeline. You're going to have to be ultra creative now to come up with things that's going to attract, with structures and vehicles that are going to attract legitimate money, clean money to jurisdictions.
Well, one of the main pieces of legislation that you will be talking about is the confidential relationship preservation law. I understand that is going to go out the door. That is going to be no more. That has to be repealed, so that now you can't hide behind that and say, I'm not giving the information because the law protects me from giving the information of Mr. B's account, of Mr. B's business at the bank. The Bank and Trust Companies law, it's going to have to be readjusted and reappealed, because they're going to be forced to give you information also. And so all of those things that we did in the 1960s and 70s to create this industry in which we are benefiting from are going to go out the door. And we are going to, I don't know how we are going to craft legislation now. Perhaps we're going to need the new Walkers and the new McDonald's and the new people to be able to come up with some ingenious way now to protect what we have left. I don't know where they are. I don't see them on the horizon, really, because I don't see them in the legislature. And I don't know if they are on the outside, but I haven't seen them.
Now, we have gotten a glimpse of what it is that the UK is demanding of us. But we have not really been able to drill down into the finer details. I'm not sure how much when the Premier and his entourage, when they go to the UK, how much they're going to be told there and how much is going to remain strictly confidential. But since the UK appears to be putting everything on the table, I would expect that when our Premier returns to the Cayman Islands, that he will put everything on the table, not only for Cayman finance and the financial and the legal practitioners here in the Cayman Islands, but for the Cayman public as well, because the state, just as much as it affects finances and the legal fraternity, it affects the man on the street even more, because he's the one who, if you talking about trickle-down economics, he's the one who, at the end of the day, is the last to benefit from any of this. And if it disappears, there's nothing for him any longer.
I agree with you, and I agree with you, and they should give us the whole picture. They should not give us the corner, or take or tear out some of the. Or block out some of the faces of some of the people. They should give us the whole picture, and let us know so that we can ascertain for ourselves and probably assist them and give them some advice on how to deal with this matter. It's not a Premier matter. It's not a Panton matter. It's a Caymanian matter. It's going to affect all of us. All of our lives are going to be affected by this. And there should be complete full disclosure of what's happening, so that we can know how to adjust ourselves if we have to adjust.
Yeah, we have two callers. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Connor, and to your guest, Mr. McField. This is Gilbert McLean.
Good morning, sir.
How are you, Mr. McLean?
I'm doing all right, and I felt like I just couldn't allow this morning or this day to pass by hearing the discussion which I have on the radio with you and Mr. McField, because this is something which, first of all, I think if we're going to be half honest with ourselves, we have to be truthful to say that the United Kingdom has been warning the Cayman Islands for decades that the game which we have been playing, where we have benefited from, where there have been hundreds, if not thousands, have benefited from by using the secrecy of the Cayman Islands financial system to serve themselves, we have been warned it would come to an end. Personally, as a legislator, I have said it dozens of times, and I refer particularly to the last time Roy Borden, former MLA, and myself paid our way, went to the UK in 1996, and we sat with the top officials there, the John Kellys, the Patrick Moody's, and the latter in particular, who we had like a 20-minute sit down with him, but it ended up almost like 2 hours. And he said to us when we were parting that, you know, gentlemen, please go back and tell your government that they must buy new planes for Cayman Airways. Develop your tourism, because you're not going to be allowed to carry on the type of business you were carrying on before. You know, I find it difficult why we as a people or as governments, successive governments, cannot deal with the truth of our reality and the reality of the world. I totally agree with what you two gentlemen were saying earlier, that it has come to the crunch now where the United Kingdom is being squeezed because she is associated or she administers these various territories here in the Caribbean and across the world, in the Channel Islands and all the rest of it. It's about money and the greed for money and the fact that the world has grown into a corporation-led and administered world. You must make laws that hurt the general public, the masses or whatever. You must tax them while reducing taxes on the richest and the corporations because they're going to do us good, which never happens. It's ignorant to believe that, although billions, I suppose, do believe that. And our foolish attitude over the years that we politicians, we ministers or whatever who feel good about ourselves and do our best to represent, that we can go to sit down and really stop the UK or the European Union from doing what they have been doing and have now come to the end game, in my opinion, to do. Gentlemen, I would suggest that this electronic platform that we here talk about is already in place, because yesterday evening I watched the television and I saw Mr. Basdeo and Tammy Solomon and those there, and they were trying in the flowery language to say that, the UK authorities can now access the information here, but it's just between the people here that have this information and the UK authorities. Well, it's not what that they wanted from the first instance, that they can glean whatever information that they want. It is a crazy situation, in my opinion, and we cannot accept that colonialism is not something good for us. And where there is colonialism, there is a superior power that is letting us, the natives, do what they want us to do, and it has never got this close to a wipeout, in my opinion. There is nothing that is going to turn this back now, and the fact that the premier is going there and taking with him whomever. Gentlemen, I suggest that doesn't really matter. That is just for him to receive a message, which quite likely when he come back, he will only feed the rest of us natives what has been agreed that we will be fed, and it is a very serious situation. Everybody who can be truthful about this thing realize that we are up against a situation that we should have made plans to deal with decades ago, and we have not done so. Decades ago, gentlemen, I have preached that, and they say, oh, what you know don't know nothing about accounting and financial services. Well, I do know something about the politics of the world. I read about it, I've read about it, I read about it on a daily basis, and I sit down and try not to lie to myself, which we do an excellent job here in Cayman of doing. Oh, don't worry about it, We Minister so-and-so went to England, and he put his foot down, and he told them he's not going to do this. What a joke. How could anyone have a foot big enough to cover the United Kingdom and Europe, United States, Canada, and everywhere else? And, of course, to be sarcastic, we have decommissioned our military many years ago,
Yes.
So it's crazy. It's right now, the government, if we have those who can think and accept truth, should be planning, going there with some kind of halfway plan to say, gentlemen, can we survive to this extent or that extent? Because these people are going to do what they want to do. President Obama yesterday or 2 days ago said, look, most of this stuff that's happening, and I heard you gentlemen defining the evasion and avoidance, he pointed out that a lot of this stuff is legal. That is the avoidance part of it. They have been attempting to merge the two from the time way back. I don't remember the year that they were talking about harmful taxation, that avoidance and evasion should be treated as one and the same. He has just issued executive orders to put a squeeze on it. So, gentlemen, you know, it's D-Day. We need to be serious, and the people of this country need to demand that the government tell us the truth of what they are being told, and we need to find some alternatives real fast. I think a good gentleman that I have a lot of regard for, Mr. Mickey Halston, is going to have the last laugh. Many people would laugh at him about taxman. You watch and see whether the taxman is not going to be the prophet for Cayman. But, gentlemen, thank you very much. I just felt like I would like to say something on this, and please don't treat it as a rant. Maybe
No, it wasn't.
not.
That's why we were listening intently.
Intently.
It is. We don't seem to accept truth or reality, and we have to get there. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you for listening, and have a good day.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
McLean. We certainly
Thank you, sir.
appreciate that. One more caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Maxfield.
Good morning, madam.
How are you all?
Fine,
How
thanks.
are
Thank
you
you.
all today?
How
Fine,
are you,
thanks,
ma'am?
and yourself?
How are you?
And I tell you the truth now, I could listen to all three, Mr. Gilbert too, along with the three of you, with the two of you, I could listen to you all for 24/7. I wish that the show was for longer. Mr. Maxfield, I would like now to have a little change up on the subject.
Yes, ma'am.
On the subject. I usually say when I call that I am the mouthpiece for some of the elderly who has a lot of common sense, because there is so many that believe that we came and do her in that, you know. Common sense, because they say it doesn't come on no more. But what I would like for you to explain also the elderly that is actually that they are listening, like myself only listens to Radio Cayman. Listening, they would like for you to explain about this hospital, this health thing here, concerning settlements and stuff like that. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I think I do. You're talking about the new legislation, the amendment to a law that went to the legislature that will now allow individuals to sue the government or the hospital in relation to malpractice
from their doctors.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And the thing is this: can you say, Mr. Matfield, how far back can these cases go?
They can only go for back now. They cannot go back at all because it's what we say in law. The legislation is not retroactive. It means it doesn't go back. You can only sue after the day when the legislation comes into force. It hasn't even come into force yet because I don't think it's been signed by the governor and gazetted. So it's only after it's been gazetted then that anyone has a claim after that can go and sue the health service, the government, or a hospital for a claim.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Maxfield. And now, Mr. Maxfield, I would love for you to get my number from I think it is Silver Fox there.
Yes.
I'm going to leave my number there for you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
And you give me a call, please.
Yes, ma'am, I will.
I have tried your number a few times, but as I know, and many more know, you are very busy.
Yes, I can give you my number over the air. I don't care.
Is your numbers
326-2828.
So that is the one.
That's his cell. That's his cell number. 326-2828.
That is one of the two that is in the book.
Yes, that's
Yes.
right.
Okay, caller. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and you all have a good weekend.
You too. We have one more caller, but we're going to take a break first. And when we come back, we're going to go straight to that caller, folks. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. Going straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
You heard your name called earlier, right? The tax man.
Yes.
Wonderful to hear you. Yes, that word tax, George, in my heart. But direct income tax I'm talking about. Payroll tax only because we see the mess that health insurance is in, and it's going to get worse. We know that's the answer to it. A nationalized health system and a nationalized social services system, the social security tax, whatever you want to call it. But I just, that's by the way, another time. Great to hear what you're saying here, Mr. McPhil, and Mr. Connor also. And I just like to say, you know, when I talked about us talking about independence and the importance of it from years ago, and I know you did also, Mr. McPhil, and others too. And we remember Mr. Jim Barton. He ran on a manifesto saying take King Cayman as far away from Great Britain as possible, and he won. He had the courage to say it. Mm-hmm. Well, now these our elected representatives, I imagine, will have to say the same thing too, because it's a wake-up call to people what is happening. As Mr. Gilbert McLean just said, they will do what they want to do. It's not a matter of they have to do. They will do what they want to do, those powers. The thing is, the same people who are getting up now and speaking against it, which I'm glad they have the courage to do, as one caller who called in earlier on, when I mentioned us looking at independence, I was vilified and derided by the same people.
Yes,
the same
yes.
people. What I'd like to ask Mr. McPhil, we'd be amazed how many tourists pay attention to things and in the news and so forth. There's repeat visitors many times, and they ask me, and I talk to a lot of tourists every day in my job. With what happened recently in the House, where it wasn't a quorum, so it was said.
Yes.
One gentleman asked me the same question I posed too. Is it anything in the standing orders that regulates and controls how the House's business is conducted that says for sure that if a quorum is required and a person is required to make that a majority in the House, say 10 to 8 or whatever it is, that if that person, the speaker, is an elected representative, at that time they cannot be considered an elected representative, because when I added up, there were 10 elected representatives, which is a majority in the House present twice on that day. I just wondered, is there something definitely in it, a part in it that says the speaker at that time, if their elected representative, cannot be counted as part of the House or as an elected representative present or whatever? Is there something definite there that says that in the standing order?
Good question, caller.
Yeah, good question.
And we'll have Mr. McPhil.
Good question.
I'm going to hang up and listen to the answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Good question. I don't have access to the standing orders, sir. And I believe that the standing orders are outdated right now.
Yep.
Because the standing orders are 2006. The Constitution is 2009. And you see what happened the other day with some of the standing orders being out of date. I don't have access to the standing orders with the numbers. But let me go up to the Constitution for you to see what it says. It says, Section 674 says, if at any time, if at any sitting of the Legislative Assembly, a quorum is not present, and any member of the Assembly who is present objects on that account to the transaction of business, and after such interval as may be prescribed in standing orders, the person presiding at the sitting ascertain that a quorum is still not present, he or she shall have adjourned the Assembly. It said, for the purpose of this section, a quorum shall consist of a majority of the elected members of the Legislative Assembly, in addition to the person presiding.
In addition to
so
that.
you're right.
Yeah.
So the person presiding constitutes the quorum, is included in the quorum. So if you're still listening, Section 74(2) says that when you count all the people on the floor of the assembly, you have to count the presiding officer too, the speaker, as one of them. So it seems to me the other day that when they said it was not a quorum, that was not correct.
Because we had how many?
Because you had 8 on the other side.
Mm-hmm. And the speaker's 9.
Tara Rivers one side, and the speaker would be 9, and the speaker would be 10.
But she came, despite the fact that she came to the meetings. I guess she challenged. She challenged, but she was in the chamber.
She was in the chamber.
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin was not in the chamber.
Yeah.
He was in the precinct, but he was not in the chamber.
Yeah.
She was in the chamber, and they made a mistake in not counting the speaker. Let me read it again. It says, for the purpose of this section, a quorum shall consist of a majority of the elected members of the Legislative Assembly in addition to the person presiding.
Yeah, that's clear. Quite clear.
That's quite clear.
Quite clear. Thanks very much for that, Mr. Markfield. I have been talking and referring to some overseas comments in relation to the question of beneficial ownership. And for the benefit of our audience, I also want to point out that there have also been local comments in relation to that as well. The law firm of Solomon Harris, for instance, has on their website the question, should the beneficial ownership of companies be public knowledge, a Cayman Islands perspective. So they have given a Cayman Islands perspective on it. And they have pointed out in there some issues, and I'll read a part of it for you if time allows. The G8's rationale for these register is that transparency will help fight tax evasion and criminal activity. It is not clear how providing public access to that information, to which the relevant authorities already have access, will help these aims, particularly if beneficial ownership registers are only for corporate entities. The logical next step must be registers for the beneficial ownership of trusts, partnerships, real estate, bank accounts, and other assets. If that standard were to be copied by the G8 members, leaving aside the Orwellian overtones, the mechanics of allowing anyone to search any G8 database would be so vast as to be unmanageable. There are many concerns that they have that Solomon Harris has pointed out. There are many concerns, including who will prevent official abuse of this information. We spoke earlier about that. It will no longer be possible to protect personally or commercially sensitive confidential information, something that you talked about, Mr. Markfield.
Yes.
Investment strategies could be impaired if the world can see everyone's holdings. Private information on legitimate wealth available to family, friends, competitors, kidnappers, tabloid journalists, and professional beggars. All of that information. The company goes on to say a better way forward could be to refine the existing regime, which allows governments to share this information and restrict access to those who need it, i.e., regulators, which monitor for illegal activity, and the revenue services. This was the standard originally proposed by the UK in June of 2013, and such a regime already largely in place in Cayman. Cayman has just signed a FACTA Model 1 IGA with the US, and a new tax information exchange agreement. In April 2013, it signed up to the G5's pilot on multilateral automatic exchange of information. It has signed memoranda of understanding on exchange of tax information with 25 of the 27 countries of the EU. It is taking steps towards FATCA standards, including on the transparency and beneficial ownership of legal persons and legal arrangements. In June 2013, CIG committed to OECD's Convention on Mutual Administrative Assistance on Tax Matters. Although there is pressure on the Cayman Islands government from the UK government to change Cayman's procedures for transparency, the potential benefits of a public register of beneficial owners would seem to be outweighed by the negative aspects. So what they're saying here, the potential benefits are outweighed by the negative aspects. So if the negatives are greater than the positives, you normally shouldn't go down that road. Mm-hmm. Cayman will not be alone in questioning the need for unfettered public access, and a global system will only work where there is a level playing field, something that I referred to earlier, as Cayman already achieves a high level of transparency, enabling the relevant authorities to access the information they might need to fight crime. It is hard to see the benefits in adopting the UK's new proposal, or that others will accept it as the global standard. All that said, watch this space. So they have made their comments. So we have the local perspective on it as well. And as we talked about earlier, Mr. Markfield, the other options, unfortunately, we haven't discussed. We know the option, the nuclear option that the United Kingdom has, which is order in council.
Yes.
We have not been discussing our options here, which is, do we exercise the right of self-determination?
Exactly.
At what point do we do that? And we cannot even do that because we have not discussed that with our populace.
And unfortunately for the writer of that article, there cannot be an 11 playing field between us and the outside, especially United Kingdom. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There can only be 11 playing field when we are mutually exclusive and be mutually the same. We're talking about a master and servant situation.
Yes.
So there's no level playing field between a master and servant situation. There's no level playing field with colonizer and the the colonized. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The colonizer and the colonized. There's no level playing field there. I mean, read Fanon. He will tell you, read all of the people. There's no level playing field. Yeah, uh-huh. So,
And you look at it, this is directed at the Crown dependencies.
Yes.
Overseas territories.
Yes.
Why? Because they all fall under the UK.
They all fall under the UK.
We're not hearing that is directed, towards Jamaica, Trinidad,
or
Grenada, or St. Lucia,
yeah, St. Lucia,
Australia, any of those,
or Australia or New Zealand, is not directed to them, and that's the reason why I made my comments about Jamaica when I first opened. They are now going into the offshore financial service industry, and they're setting up. They're putting their legislation in place and building downtown Kingston to house the facilities that they are going to need.
And the final thing on here, Mr. Markfield, is that when this adversely, I didn't say if, when it adversely affects the Cayman Islands to the point that we are suffering financially. We have not heard the UK government say how they're going to help us to make up the shortfall, how they're going to assist us. They haven't said that.
They're not going to allow it.
You need to ask them that question, Premier, when you go over there.
Exactly. Who's going to pay for all the homes and stuff that when people lose their jobs and financial interest? Who's going to pay the bank mortgages and the loans, and who's going to fund the pension plans for all these civil servants and people like that?
Well, Mr. Markfield, I know you always have some final comments and something to keep us thinking.
I wrote something down as we were talking, and I said we are at a complex. We are at a complex political crossroad, economic and political crossroads. On going forward, our priorities must be giving Caymanians a place at the social and economic table. with the requisite requirements to get a piece of the economic pie, or what's left of it. The slices might not be all the same size, but we need to give each one a piece. On going forward, we must stop giving away our people's monies in the form of concessions to millionaires and billionaires. On going forward, we need to get a grip on who we really are. We need to stop posturing and boasting on who we are not. We are certainly not all rich and powerful. On going forward, we need to embrace strategies and technologies to build our own partnerships for prosperity by building our own consensuses and alliances and providing efficient and effective visions for the future. On going forward, we need to create a more loving, equal, and happy society. On going forward, we need to find our own solutions to our own problems. And on going forward, we need to give Caymanians their rights as is embodied in the Constitution of the Cayman Islands. And on going forward, we need to implement all the provisions of the constitutions that have not so far been implemented. That's what we need to do. Thank you, Ori, for inviting me again.
Thank you. And I'll add to that also, we need to re-examine our Constitution because, you know, what we achieved in 2009, and there were some things that we didn't achieve at that point in time, we need to really look at making inroads in some of those things that we didn't achieve, because certainly our Constitution doesn't take us as far as we need to go at this stage.
And if you allow me, if the government does not want to do this, I suggest that people like Mr. Gilbert McLean, myself, and other people who are interested in our future and who wants to provide a vision for the future get together and form a think tank to see how we can move our constitution forward.
Yeah.
I think that if the government doesn't want to do it, then it's up to us to do it.
Precisely.
Because it affects all of us.
Yeah. And we shouldn't always wait for the politicians
to do it.
Because we saw what happened in the past. It took us
Yes.
so long to get. Like you pointed out, we had constitutions written and they never came to life.
Never came to life.
Yes, folks. I want to thank you for allowing us into your homes, into your places of work, into your vehicles as you traverse the roads of the Cayman Islands. I want to thank you for tuning in to For the Record this morning. I also want to thank our sponsors. For the Record is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance Insurance Company Limited, Tomorrow Secured. Call them at 949-9744 or visit them at a list of towers. Seaboard Marine, with 35 shipping routes, including from Houston, New York, Miami, and Jamaica. Visit seaboardmarine.com for shipping schedules and more. Seaboard Marine, shipping shore to shore. Fidelity Bank, for all of your banking and pension needs. Call or visit a Fidelity branch today. And, of course, the Cayman Reporter, Caymanian owned, 100% independent, and 100% free. So pick up your free copy today or log on to www.caymanreporter.com. I want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity. We always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to listen to your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling, Dwayne Ebanks at 12 noon for talk today. And, of course, the proceedings of the Legislative Assembly will continue to be broadcast on Radio Cayman 105.3 FM. Have a great day, and may God continue to bless these three Cayman Islands.